All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. And this time we are looking at something that, well, let's just say it's gotten a lot of people talking online.
Yeah, for sure.
It all started with this article that popped up on Fansided, I think it was.
Hmm.
And well, basically it suggested that the Toronto Blue Jays might actually consider trading Vladimir Guerrero
Oh,
Jr.
the Yankees, no less.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about the Yankees here, their biggest rival. So
It's wild.
yeah, and of course the Blue Jays had a rough season last year. I mean, they finished dead last in the AL East.
Yeah, nobody saw that coming, really. I mean, with that payroll.
Right, they had the highest payroll in franchise history and still ended up at the bottom of the division.
So you can see why maybe they'd be looking to shake things up.
Exactly, and on top of that, you've got Guerrero Jr. heading into free agency in less than a year,
Hmm.
and from what we've heard, the contract talks haven't exactly been smooth sailing.
No, they haven't. And when you combine that with the team's struggles, it's understandable why this trade idea is getting so much attention.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a deep dive into this proposed trade, see if it makes sense for either team, and we'll consider all the angles here.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the trade that Fansided proposed sends Guerrero Jr. to the Yankees, and in return, the Blue Jays get three of their top prospects. So
Right. You've got Spencer Jones, the outfielder, Will Warren, the pitcher, and Everson Pereira, another outfielder.
so let's break down these prospects one by one. I mean, what are the Blue Jays actually getting here?
Well, let's start with Spencer Jones. I mean, the guy's got serious power potential. We're talking like Aaron Judge kind of power.
Wow. Okay, so big upside there.
Absolutely. But there's a catch. His strikeout rate is pretty high, like around 30%. So there's a lot of swing and miss in his game.
So he's a bit of a project then.
Yeah, you could say that he needs to work on making more consistent contact. But if he can figure that out, he could be a real star.
All right, so high risk, high reward kind of player makes sense.
Exactly. Now moving on to Will Warren. He's a pitcher with a good mix of pitches he could develop into a solid mid-rotation starter.
So a more reliable option than Jones, maybe.
Potentially. I mean, he's still got some work to do, but he's definitely got the tools.
And what about Pereira? I haven't heard as much about him.
Pereira's interesting. He's a speedy outfielder, good hit tool, but he had a bit of a down year in 2024 because of an elbow injury.
Ah, so that's a bit of a red flag then.
It is something to keep an eye on, for sure. If he can bounce back and stay healthy, he could be a really valuable player.
Okay, so we've got one high risk, high reward prospect, a solid pitching prospect, and then Pereira, who's a bit of a question mark.
Right, and the big question is this package enough for the Blue Jays to give up their franchise player?
Especially if they're trying to rebuild, like, is this the kind of return that sets them up for the future?
That's the tough part. I mean, if I'm the Blue Jays, I'm thinking I need to get maximum value for Guerrero Jr. This package feels a little light to me, especially when you consider how badly the Yankees need a power hitter.
Right, they lost Juan Soto, remember? And they haven't really found a replacement for him.
Exactly. So they're desperate, and that could drive the price up in a trade like this.
But wouldn't the Yankees be better off trying to sign Guerrero Jr. long term rather than just getting him for a year?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they could try, but signing him to a long-term deal would be incredibly expensive.
And it could limit their ability to make other moves in the future.
Yeah, they'd really be putting all their eggs in one basket.
So it's a gamble either way, I guess.
It really is. There are no easy answers here.
And let's not forget about Guerrero Jr. himself.
Mhm.
I mean, how would he feel about this whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, he seems to love playing in Toronto, and moving to New York is a whole different animal.
It's a pressure cooker down there.
For sure. And on top of that, he'd probably have to switch to third base.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, he's primarily been a first baseman, and making that switch could affect his offense. Who knows?
It's a lot for him to consider.
It really is, and it makes you realize how complicated a trade like this really is.
It's not just about plugging players in and hoping for the best.
No, it's about personalities, it's about contracts, it's about team chemistry, and long-term strategy.
It's like a giant chess game.
Exactly. And even if this particular trade doesn't end up happening, it brings up a really important question for the Blue Jays.
What's that?
What are their other options? I mean, what else could they do to improve the team and deal with Guerrero Jr.'s contract situation?
Right. I mean, do they try to re-sign him and build around him?
Maybe. Or do they explore other trade possibilities, maybe with a different team?
We've got a lot to think about, that's for sure.
No doubt about it. This is going to be an interesting offseason for the Blue Jays.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here today, and it's clear that this potential trade is a huge gamble for both the Blue Jays and the Yankees.
Absolutely. And for you listening out there, we want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, what do you think about this trade? Would you do it if you were the Blue Jays general manager?
It's a complex situation with no easy answers, and we want to hear your take on it.
So let us know in the comments, and thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See ya.